Will they ever learn? Not with the egos these fuckers have, right? Financial Post. Economy. Trending. More countries looking to stimulus spending in climate of economic uncertainty. I mean, even the very prospect, the very premise of stimulus spending. So, the Keynesian model, right? So when people aren't spending enough in the economy to keep the Ponzi scheme or the so-called economic system going, the premise, the idea that Keynes come up with was, well, that's the time when central banks, central governments should intervene, start printing money, counterfeiting, and act on behalf of the consumers by spending or printing money into the economy or trying to stimulate growth. But if you think about it, right, like I said, shrink your economy down, because economy is just scale. It's all scalable. So shrink your economy down from a country or a province down to your household, right? So let's say you had a household where there's a mother, father, 4 adult working children, and they overextend themselves to the point where they just were massively in debt. Every year they kept spending more that they brought in. They got themselves into a whole lot of trouble, and everyone was discouraged to the point, well, not just discouraged, but they no longer had the ability to keep paying the bills because they overextend themselves. What central banks, what central planners, what Keynesians tried to suggest is, in that situation, rather than letting the reset happen naturally because they overextended themselves, they made the wrong decisions, made some pretty big mistakes that need to be corrected. Is, well, no, don't correct the mistakes. No, step in, as the father, let's say, right, and start, I don't know, print money. Grab your printing press and start counterfeiting money and handing that out to, well, actually, that's the thing. You're not even giving it to the productive people that are working, really. You're just giving it to them, the mother and father, right? So the mother and father would be the ones that get, just like the cronies or the corporatists or the, the cronies or the corporatists or the ones on Wall Street, but basically the insiders. So instead of even handing that out to that printed currency out to everyone in the family, we'll just give it to the mother and the father that printed that money, and hopefully they can stimulate, right? And hopefully they can stimulate everyone else by spending that money somehow. Now, I get where they're trying to do that trickle down aspect of it, but by the time it gets to everyone else, there's already inflationary fundamentals that are going to take place. So by the time it even gets down to the kids, well, the purchasing power of that money that's been, well, first of all, as soon as you print money, it's already decreasing the purchasing power because it's false stimulus. There's no real demand. It's just printing money as a means to an end. So it's a fake way to create consumption. And when you print money without it reflecting actual demand for the money, because that's the thing, if everyone's over indebted, nobody wants more money. If you're already indebted to pay off your debts, they might want it to spend elsewhere in the economy to create more debts, but that's just making things worse. But how could you possibly think that by printing money is going to actually help your situation? No, the proper thing would be to teach your kids, even yourself, if you were part of that, is to teach yourself, your wife, and your kids is, okay, we gotta stop this, and unfortunately, we're going to have to go through a little bit of pain because we made some really bad mistakes. We're going to have to be held accountable for our past mistakes. But don't worry, once we get through that rough patch, well, we'll have the knowledge and the forethought, hopefully, not to repeat those same mistakes. And then once we start on, even if later down the road we do end up making that same mistake, at least once we've corrected things, we've got a clear road ahead, at least for a short term, we'll be on the right track for a while, right? Nobody even wants to get on the right track. They're still run down that track to nowhere. That's the rails are going to end, and there's a cliff at the edge of it. But there's only, in an economy, there's only so much actual real demand, real growth. You can't stimulate that falsely without having massive intended or unintended consequences for doing so. You're just stealing from future products. So like I said, or using a credit card to get you through the rough patch. So yeah, you can use a credit card to get you through the rough patch, but you're still going to have that increased credit card debt to pay off at some point in time in the future. And in the future, you're believing that, hopefully, that's the thing too, you're believing that in the future you're going to be having a much more increased amount of wealth and not just pay off the debt and all the increased spending and the stimulus, but then you got all the regular things that you have to pay for too. So that's a belief that you're going to be not just relatively the same as far as your productivity and your income, but that's speculating that you're going to have massive amounts more, because you're going to have to be able to pay all the increased debts and continue your life from that point forward on to sustain it at these ridiculously overinflated and overvalued prices, and not just in regards to assets or commodities or speculative markets. I mean, it's not going to work. You stealing from the future to use in the present just means that in the future things are going to be that much worse for you. Robbing Peter to pay Paul just means that Peter is going to be that much less prosperous. There's just no way to get around those fundamentals. That's just reality. It's reality 101. So stimulus spending, the Keynesian model, but of course Keynes knew that himself. The famous quote where he said, in the end we're all dead anyways, basically acknowledged that fact. Most people don't want to point that reality out, though, is when called about on his shit, Keynes basically owned up and fessed to the fact that, yeah, it was just a temporary measure. It's not going to be the end-all be-all. It's not going to create true prosperity. It just means that let's just do it now and let someone else worry about it in the future. It's Canadian Libertarian. I love liberty.